Welcome to the Self-Defense Warrior Podcast, where our hosts, Jeffery Wilson and Pat Miletich, probe the minds of experts from a vast spectrum of knowledge on how to best prepare for the inevitable emergency situation to come. Jeffery and Pat in the Self-Defense Warrior Podcast are your insurance policy moving forward. And now, here they are, the hosts of the Self-Defense Warrior Podcast, Jeffery Wilson and Pat Miletich.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Self-Defense Warrior Podcast. We're excited about this episode. We're going to be talking to a guru, an expert on health, on immune systems. We're going to focus on the immune system today. But before I get to our guest, who I've, definitely gotten a lot of absorption of knowledge from, we're going to go ahead and kick it over to Jeffery Wilson, my co-host and longtime friend.
Yeah, what's up, gentlemen? Always good to see Tim James back in the saddle here. We've talked to him many times on many other programs, but it's always good to sit under the health learning tree with Mr. Tim James. How are you doing, brother?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. Pat, Jeffrey, glad to be on your new show. Very exciting. I like this new show because you guys are providing solutions for people, not just bringing them like what all the problems are, but now here's the solutions. Now you can be inspired and go take action in your own life and get results, because that's where we need to go. We can't rely on anybody else to solve our problems.
Correct. So Tim James, just for those of you on Red Voice Media that are not familiar with Tim James, he's the owner and founder of ChemicalFreeBody.com. And he's a guy that followed me around a grocery store. He came to Iowa one time, made the trip all the way from the West Coast, basically, to come see me and follow me around a grocery store, a health food grocery store, and said, you're a former world champion and coach. You know your P's and Q's and about nutrition. So go ahead and go shopping, pull the stuff off the shelves that you would eat and you would feed to your kids, and I'll let you know why you don't want to. And basically how little you actually know, Pat. So I did that, and
I didn't say that.
No, you didn't need to. I'm just letting people know that even though I knew a little bit, the more I learned that I don't know shit. That's what I'm saying. So anyway, yes, founder of Chemical Free Body, amazing products, not a single chemical in any of his products. Everything's organic and plant-based, down to even the capsules are plant-based. So that's very important to him. And he's living a chemical-free life. That is what he does. And he has a unique story. Everybody knows that I had to change my respiratory system health. I was in bad shape and had to figure that out through organics. And Tim has a pretty powerful story on how he figured out how to get himself back to health, and including his best friend. So Tim, welcome, and give us the lowdown on that for our new viewers.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I would just want to say hello to all the listeners here. My story kind of goes back to, I grew up on a farm in Eastern Oregon. I was hunting and fishing, and played baseball at a high level for 30 years. So I was really competitive. I liked, winning. So I would do anything for an advantage, to be stronger, recover faster, any of that kind of stuff. So I remember when somebody's like, yeah, you need to put protein powder in a blender with like peanut butter and oats, and that'll make your muscles huge. And I'm like, done. So me and my buddy were down there. It's like instant coffee, man. We're doing that. We're just like, we bought soy protein powder. We put in the milk, and then we put in oats and bananas and peanut butter. And every time we go work out, and we hit that, and then we play video games afterwards, because we're in college, and then go study, which wasn't fun. But so as I do anything to get better, and so let's fast forward. Now I'm 37 years old. I gained 42 pounds. I had eczema on my left knee. That was a huge patch that had been there for years and gotten bigger and bigger. It was cracking and bleeding and sticking to my pants. Again, I was a financial advisor at the time, running around at 3 offices, lots of stress. We're doing 2 marketing meetings a week. Literally, we would feed people dinner at steakhouses and then do a presentation and then book appointments. It was a thriving financial advising practice that I was getting ready to kind of take over. This guy was sunsetting, and so it was an awesome opportunity for me. But a lot of hours, a lot of work, a lot of stress. And then I also had eczema started developing on my elbows. So that was really fun because I couldn't wear white shirts anymore at work because I'd bleed and stain them and ruin them. And it's very painful, and your body's bleeding and pants and shirts are sticking to it because you have to rip it off. And so it's just like irritating. I'd also be over at somebody's house and then somebody like, there's blood on the wall. And I'm like, ugh, it was me. So I'd always be cleaning people's walls and couches and stuff. And being an A-type person, outgoing personality, I felt my world was kind of imploding or shrinking on itself because I'd go to the beach and stuff with my family, but I had a couple kids and a wife and the house and, mortgage and all that stuff. But I stopped taking my shirt off, not because I was overweight and I had a big belly, but because I was embarrassed about my freaking elbows and my knee. I mean, I looked like a salamander with blood and stuff. And so my world was kind of imploding on myself. And I wasn't as expressive, and it wasn't a good state mentally because it just weighs on you, dude, day in and day out. Well, then it got worse. Then I started bleeding rectally every time I'd poop. So that went on for about 2.5 years. And doctors wanted me to go on Prilosec, which sounded weird. And then pharmaceutical drugs. One of the drugs' side effect was rectal bleeding. So I thought, I'm not taking this. I already got that. The side effects are like super long, right? And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. I actually got the prescriptions a couple times, but I never took them. I never actually took them. So that was probably a good thing that I did that. But I couldn't ever figure out what was going on. This education that I have now that I'm blessed with wasn't in the school system. My parents didn't know about it. None of my family knows about it. They're all health messed up, most of them. And I just didn't get it anywhere. So what ended up happening was a friend of mine, Kalei Mahoy, on my baseball team, he developed stomach cancer. Now, he chewed tobacco because that's what a lot of us baseball players do. And so we kind of chalked it up to that because Clay was like healthy. I mean, he had like an 8-pack abs. He could have been an underwear model, good looking guy. And we watched him die 80 pounds under his weight. And he looked like somebody from Auschwitz. It was very sad. He left 3 little boys behind from ages 6 to 17. So as a 40-year-old man, contracting cancer that's healthy looking, that was kind of odd. But again, we chalked that one up to the chewing tobacco. Then a good friend of mine a few years later, Charles, at age 43, got diagnosed with chronic lymphocytic leukemia. So this is supposedly at the time, 2010, when he got diagnosed, a incurable blood cancer. The recommendation was there's nothing we can do. When it gets bad, we'll hit you with chemo. That will knock it back and give you some more time. But when it comes back the second time, it comes back with a vengeance. And then basically that's it. At that point, we will put you on experimental drugs and hope that we find a cure before you die. That was the outlook at the time from Western medicine. So my buddy, who's an entrepreneur and owns his own business, who was struggling at the time actually, said, to hell with this. And he grabbed the reins of his health and he decided to try to heal naturally because that was the only option basically left. So he found a place called the Hippocrates Health Institute. They are a now 70-year-old alternative health clinic, which should just be called a traditional health clinic because this is the way, medicine and healing has been done for millennia, which is naturally, because all this other synthetic stuff is just Johnny come lately. It's only in the last 100, 200 years this stuff's been around. So the stuff that'd been around for a long, long, long time, he decided to go take a peek at that because his back was against the wall and he had a gun to his head. He was in the proposition of dying and leaving his 14-year-old son behind. So now my experience with cancer was you get it and you're toast. My buddy, obviously, Clay had died of it. My aunt had died of melanoma skin cancer. It also spread to her lungs. My mom did the hospice care for her. She was a saint. For those of you that are in the middle of hospice care or have done that for a loved one, my heart goes out to you because I know, because I was there, it was like, it's a lot of work emotionally and physically, and it takes a toll on families. And then my grandma died of brain cancer, and same thing, morphine drips, all this stuff. So it was, all that stuff was hard on our families. And my experience personally, grandma, aunt, and a good friend of mine was you get it and you're done. So I'm thinking this is what's going to happen to my other friend. So he asked me to go with him to the Hippocrates Health Institute. I said, yep, whatever you want, dude. I had no idea what I was getting into. January 1st, 2011, we fly there. And that's when my life changed. I had like I said, I had no idea what I was getting into. Charles was like, oh yeah, by the way, there's no meat. There's no dairy, there's no salt, there's no sugar, there's nothing cooked over 115 degrees, and there's no vinegar. And I was like, wait a minute, there's no meat? So he kind of freaked me out. But I'm like, wait, I mean, I literally was completely freaked out, but he was smart. He got me on the airplane first, kind of like Mr. T. He didn't like to fly. Well, I didn't like to live without meat, but he got me going there. So I put my emotions aside. I literally found out that I was emotionally connected to food at that point. And it was like, because it was like freaking me out. So we get there and we basically drink all this purified water, wheatgrass juices, sprouts, sprouted nuts, sprouted seeds, sprouted grains, sprouted beans, this living food program. And then they do a lot of cleaning up the mess that you've already accumulated in your life. So the first class was on Wednesday. It was called Internal Awareness by this Dr. Scott Josephson. This guy comes out and he's jacked. He's like really good shape, looks good, looks like he's about 40 years old, very healthy. Come to find out it was his 50th birthday that day. And I'm like, wow, this guy looks really good for 50. He doesn't look like 50 at all. This is amazing. And he's like, started teaching this class. So why were they teaching this class called Internal Awareness? Because they wanted to give us awareness of what the hell's going on inside of us, because you can't see it. We take really good care, ladies, we take good care of our hair and our makeup and our face and our blouse, and guys, we get our hair combed and fix our beard up and we shave and we do all that stuff. But what about the inside? You can't see it, and that's the problem. So he started explaining what the problem was, and it's an inside game. It's like your average person. Now, if you guys don't get anything else out of this talk today, this sharing, it's that the average person's carrying around 6 to 12 pounds of impacted fecal material. This is disease-causing waste matter that's accumulated in the colon, and it's not supposed to be there. Your colon, what I've learned, is not a storage tank. It is a waste removal system. Food's supposed to come in, go through you, take the nutrients out, and the rest is supposed to exit. But it's building up. It's building up from a lack of hydration. 95% of us are not drinking enough water today. The foods are processed. They're cooked, they're fried, they're boxed, they're canned, they're irradiated, they're pasteurized. They have synthetic vitamins added to them called enriched, which is a joke. And long story short, you got 10 to 12 pounds of funk and gunk and junk in your colon. The Hippocrates Health Institute has had over 600,000 people through their door, and they've helped that many people do what's called colonics, or colon hydrotherapy. Now, I've asked you guys this before, so I already know, but for the listeners, if you're not familiar with colon hydrotherapy, it's basically colon hydro water therapy. So you put water in your colon. That's it. So you set on a tube rectally, and then water goes in and out of your colon gently for about an hour, and it cleans your colon. Not really that big of a deal. But when I first heard about it, was propositioned with that, I'm like, I literally elbowed Charles and said, look, dude, I came here to help you with your cancer, but that ain't happening. It's not going to happen. I'm not doing that. And he's like, yeah, whatever, man. It's like, he goes, I'm going to do it, So I'm like, oh, because he's afraid he's going to die. And I'm like, I'm more afraid of dying than doing that deal right now. So, but the doctor was like brilliant, man. He explained everything, how the gut worked and all this stuff. And I learned so much, and it made sense, but I still wasn't going to do it until he started showing us virtual colonoscopies. So videos inside of people's colons. 4 people. The first one was a 24-year-old female that had Hashimoto's, which is a thyroid disorder, and she also had a yeast infection. It was like thrush. And inside of her colon, now, when you go into a colon, you think it'd be brown, right? Because that's the waste removal system. Inside this lady's colon, this young woman, 24 years old, it's white and yellow because she has so much yeast overgrowth inside of her. And I was like, holy crap, that can't be good. Then they went to a 65-year-old male that had colon cancer, stage 4 colon cancer, and parasites. Inside of his colon was black as night. It was like tar, and he had white worms buzzing around it, crawling around in there. And I was just like, oh, my God. I mean, just the worm seeing, just thinking about that. And then the doctor spins around. I'll never forget. He goes, most of you think that these parasite things are a third world affair. Far from it. He goes, what you're going to experience over the next 3 weeks is easily over 50% of you are going to see these parasites exiting your body through your stool. And some of you are going to see them exiting through your skin as you change the internal terrain of your body and make it inhospitable for them. And so now I'm like, what? Like over 50% of us? He said, and he goes, and those are the ones you can see. There's a lot of parasites that are microscopic, and he said they're in the blood and the fat. He's like, a lot of these, all of them are drinking what you're drinking your drinks, eating your food. They're urinating and defecating in you, having sex and laying thousands of eggs. And then I'm just like, So now all of a sudden I'm thinking colon hydrotherapy sounded pretty darn good about now. Then they went to the last gal, was a 45-year-old female with breast cancer, and she had like colitis or Crohn's or diverticulosis or something. Her gut was jacked up. And again, there was some brown in there, but mostly like black tar. It didn't look right. Then they showed the person that had a healthy life, a healthy body, and they were happy, and their skin was amazing, and they had vitality and energy, and they're sleeping well and all that. They'd been on the Hippocrates program for a few years. Inside of her colon, there was the brown waste matter, but you could see the lining of the colon was pink and clean, and the blood vessels. My whole point to this talk today is that her colon was completely different. The healthy woman's colon was completely different than the people that had problems. It was night and day. I could see it. I got it. The light bulb went off, and I'm like, this is an inside game. I literally stood up in the middle of the class. Nobody could have stopped me, and I was the first one to sign up for the colon hydrotherapy session. The next day, I went and did it. They weighed me. They weighed me again afterwards. I literally dropped 11 pounds of funk and gunk and junk in a 1-hour session, and the record at the Institute at that time in 2011 was a lady dropped 27 pounds of crap in one colon hydrotherapy session. 27 pounds. And I equate that to the size of a medium-sized dog falling out of your rear end. That's how much stuff came out. Unbelievable. So this is why people have issues, guys. It's because we're full of crap. I mean, like literally, that's where we're at today. And the problem with it is it creates an environment inside of you that's very hospitable because the environment's very high acid, low oxygen, and you have become now a breeding factory for viruses, bacterias, molds, yeast, fungus, mutagens, these cancers, and parasites. So when you go to a place like Hippocrates, they put you on a very high oxygen, high alkaline diet. They help you clean up that garbage. They start flooding your cells with oxygen and alkalinity. And then the little parasites and the bugs, they start packing their bags. And that's why people see them leave through their stools. And we'd see parasites crawling out people's pores. One lady had a parasite crawling out of her eye at lunch. Like literally, Jeez. This is why. This is not magic. It's not woo-woo. I saw it with my own eyes. I'm just a regular working class dude. I'm there trying to help my buddy. So that was the very beginning of it. I went through a few days of detox to wrap up. And then all of a sudden I woke up about day 4 or 5 and I felt freaking amazing. I looked at Charles like, dude, do you feel as good as I do? He's like, yeah. I'm like, dude, you're going to heal. You're going to beat this whole cancer thing. I know it. I'm like, my arms are tingling with energy and I feel like I'm freaking 18 again. My brain clarity. I dropped 11. Besides, I think the first week I dropped 11 pounds probably because of the colon hydrotherapy thing. But when I got back home, in 60 days, I dropped 42 pounds total. My ribs were back. My energy was back. Both of my elbows completely healed in 60 days of this eczema. The knee was pretty bad. It was thick. It took about 8 months for that to completely heal itself up. And I've been on a mission ever since, and I've been telling people about it. We built a coaching program. I stopped being a financial advisor. I became a health advisor. We launched chemicalfreebody.com. We brought Dr. Treadway on. We have a formulator. We've got our detox nutrition products. And I am just on a mission to help the working class take back their health, become their own doctor, and learn how to self-heal.
Yeah, let's talk about some of this, the causes of this when we've got so many harsh chemicals and heavy metals in our environment, in our soil, in our crops, in our food production. They come from different sources, but people are dumping cancer-causing chemicals on their lawn, and the lawn care company will post a sign on your lawn says, no dogs or kids on here for a certain amount of time because they know how toxic it is. And it still remains, obviously. It's in your soil. It's all around your house. And so we just keep pounding ourselves, and then household products with tons of harsh chemicals as well, cleaning solvents and detergents and everything else. So our cells get packed with heavy metals and toxins because, well, our cells don't recognize heavy metals and toxins as water soluble, so they have a tough time releasing them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I called our company Chemical Free Body, because I after I got back from Hippocrates, I was like, I'm going to heal naturally. I'm going to do it all on whole foods. And then I realized that when I learned that 85% of the nutrients were farmed out of the soil today, I'm like, well, crap, we're all walking around on 15% octane. That's not good. Imagine what we could be if we topped off the tank and we were actually at 100% octane. I mean, if you go to the gas station and you have 15% octane, $2 a gallon. Well, nowadays it'd be $5 a gallon. And then, and then 100% octane, and that's $5.50 a gallon. which one are you going to put in your tank? Well, you're going to want 100% octane. Otherwise, your car's going to like chug along. It's not going to have a lot of power. It won't be able to pull the trailer over the hill, or get your butt over the hill if you're trying to walk. And so that's where we're at today. And that's when I was like, wow, we have to supplement today no matter what. So we have to replace what's missing. There's a couple ways of doing it. You can start culturing your own soil and your own foods and growing your own sprouts in your home and making sure you have great heirloom seeds that were grown in soil that was awesome. That's one option, and I'm a big sprouter, and I promote sprouting to everybody. I think everybody should be sprouting at home. It's the freshest food. It's one of the best medicines on the planet, period, end of story. We could do a whole nother show on that. But the other thing is you can replace that with supplementation, right, very easily. So most of us are just going to want to be able to take a scoop of something, a couple pills, and then move along and go about our day because we're so damn busy today, because that's what they force mom and dad out in the workplace. So we try to meet people where they're at with the products and stuff like that, so they can get they get the energy back. But that's only one little piece. The second piece that came to me was the chemicals that you were talking about, Pat.
Right.
And here's case closed right here. When you're done listening to this podcast, just write these 3 words down, pull over if you're driving, whatever. Umbilical cord chemical. Okay? Umbilical cord chemical. You will see the studies that I read back in freaking 10 years ago, 10 years ago, that show that every single child being born today has 180 cancer-causing chemicals in the womb. Now, they're only looking for 400 chemicals, and they're finding like 250. And again, 180 of those cause cancer, 212 cause developmental and brain disorders. And they're only looking for 400, whatever the test is. So there's over 100,000 toxic chemicals out there in the marketplace today, 2,000 new chemicals being made every year, and only 1/4 of those, 1% are ever tested. The rest are just, they don't meet the timeline, so they just let them go out into the marketplace. And they're only testing for 400. So if we extrapolate that out, it means that the average person today could have up to 71,000 toxic chemicals in their blood. So why is that a big deal? Well, if you don't realize that, children today are being born with cancer and that's a problem, I mean, I don't know that's where we're at today. It used to be old people used to get sick. Now it's like kids are being born overweight, kids are being born obese, kids are being born with type 2 diabetes, kids are being born with cancer. We are de-evolving as a species because we are lacking nutrition, real nutrition, and we are chemically polluted and chemically cellularly constipated. Your cells can't poop, basically. They're plugged up, they're inflamed. So we have to go down to the root, which is the cellular level. We have to reduce that inflammation. We have to get nutrients in there and stuff into the cells and help the cells with water and other things to get the toxins out. And when you start doing that, you start getting your life back and your health back. And the third component would be stress. So those are the 3 things. And I'm not going to just glance over stress because it's a big deal, but we only have time to talk about maybe 1 or 2 of these topics today. So nutrition's one. Detoxing the chemicals, big. It's the first thing we focus on. It's like taking the car into the shop or the tractor into the shop, put the good fuel in, and then give people strategies to mitigate their stress.
You've been listening to the Self-Defense Warrior Podcast with Jeffery Wilson and Pat Miletich. Watch the complete interview on Red Voice Media Premium using the link below, completely uncensored and ad-free. Not a member yet? Try it for $1.